What's up, everyone? Just wanted to drop you guys a video and share what I learned yesterday. For those who don't know or read my message, I attended an event called Uncharted Territory, the final chapter. This was given by a gentleman by the name of Bruce Norris. Bruce is, in my opinion, one of my favorites, if not my favorite. He's one of the most well-respected economic forecasters for housing in California. He's since moved to Florida, and he's investing in Florida. But I'll give you a little history about what he's done. In 1996, he wrote a book, Why Real Estate's Going to Double by 2005, and if we get a sub 5 interest rate, sub 6% interest rate, prices will go beyond that. He hit the nail on the head. 2006, he wrote a book and he said, get out of real estate. I actually attended that seminar in 2006. He said, get out, sell everything. And I sold everything. I kept a couple things foolishly, and those ended up having trouble. But he sold everything in 2006, and a lot of people followed him and made a tremendous amount of money. These are developers, people that are building and keeping their inventory. In 2012, he wrote a book, All In or Fold, or did another talk called All In or Fold, and he basically said, real estate is about to go up. And it felt very weird. I didn't think real estate was going to go up in 2012. It just didn't feel right. But he said all of the charts and economic data point towards we're going to have a housing boom and we're going to go on a bull run. So people that listened to him bought, started flipping, buying rentals, making smart real estate decisions. 2016, he came out with something called 2% mortgage rates and $40 trillion debt. People thought he was crazy. Rates went to 2%, I think in 2020. And now he's come up with his final one here. He's not doing another forecast ever again, he said. But essentially, this is uncharted territory. We're in a really interesting time right now. So all of the charts, and there's 179 pages that we went through of economic data, all of the charts point towards we're going towards a crash. Affordability is maxed out. And in addition to that, the mood of the buyer has changed greatly. So the euphoric buyer is completely gone. And you guys, I'm sure, have noticed that because you're listing and selling property. The euphoric buyer is not really in the marketplace. They were there earlier this year, late last year, but they've since disappeared. And in order to get the euphoric buyer back, and he's charted when the euphoric buyer has been in the market since the 70s, they don't come back quickly. It doesn't matter if rates get cut down to 2 or 3%. It takes a whole bunch of sequences in order for that euphoric buyer to come back. So all of the charts point towards a crash. Now, this is really interesting times because since the early 80s, every time we've come to a 17% affordability level, and 17% is his magic number as to where the market starts to deteriorate and crash. It doesn't go beyond 17%. It did in 2006 because of all the liar loans that were out there. It pushed affordability a little bit higher, but that signals market's going to crash. This time in the 80s, when the market, I think it was 1980, 1989, 1994, 2006, they had the ability to cut interest rates to keep buyers engaged and in the marketplace. This time, there's really not much more cutting to do. I mean, we can cut rates, but we're fighting serious inflation. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Fed reacts. But long story short, all of the signs point towards a crash. However, there's a lot of safeguards in place that are going to prevent a crash from happening. And those safeguards, basically, I'll talk about them. Last time in 2006, there were short sales. Short sales are where someone owes more than the property's worth. There's $28 trillion in equity in America right now. To give you context, at the height of the last boom, which was 2006, 2007, there was 14 trillion. With underlying loans of, adjustable rate mortgages and 2-year fixed and this and that, and with 3-year prepayment penalties and just terrible loans out there with people that weren't really qualifying. But we have a record-breaking amount of equity with underlying loans that are all at 2.5%, 3%, 4%, people that really had to qualify. So what's interesting is you're going to see in the news foreclosures are up 300%, 500%, 5,000%. This means nothing in his opinion. He's basically saying you may have had in your county 4 foreclosures and now you have 15. Whoop-de-doo, it's gone up, 350% or whatever that is. And the news and media will make it seem like a problem, but in reality, it's not. And then let's talk about what an actual foreclosure is. Some foreclosures have no equity, some have equity. The ones that have equity, let's say someone owes $300,000 on their home and it's worth $550,000. If they're in foreclosure, what happens is it goes to the courthouse steps. I think in every state, in California it certainly does, and I think in most states it does. And investors stand there and they bid on the property. It's an auction. If there's equity in the property, you have a 99%, if not 100% chance of that property being bought at that actual auction. The trustee sale is what it's called in California at the courthouse steps. So it's not going to resort back to the bank. If it doesn't get bought at the courthouse steps, it goes to the bank and becomes REO or bank-owned property. You're not going to have that this time because there's an enormous amount of equity. So if there are people being foreclosed on, which I don't think there's going to be many, and I'll tell you why in a second, they're going to get bought up at auction, and they're never going to become a comparable sale for the homes we're listing. And that's where markets have big problems. In 2008, if you were a regular seller trying